Today we are going to have our snow day waffles. So we're going to make a batch of sourdough waffles with some homemade hash browns, bacon, eggs, sausage, just kind of an easy little breakfast for lunchy, brunchy type meal. So let's actually start with, I'm going to whip up our waffle batter so that it can sit and get kind of nice, kind of let the baking soda and baking powder react with it. Gives you a nice fluffy waffle on there, and then we'll wait to cook them up, and then we'll work on our hash brown patties and everything like that. So I'm going to make a kind of a batch and a half of my waffles. So we're going to need a good amount of on here so we can make 6 full-size waffles. So we're going to start with 1.5 cups of milk. I'm using whole milk here. And since this is a big one, I've got to use both of my discards here. I fed them up last night, so I had to have plenty of discard for this recipe. But I'm going to need 1.5 cups of discard. So I'm going to poke this guy down. And we'll use, this is Jacques. We'll use some of Jacques in here. So I'm going to use 3/4 of a cup of Jacques, and then I'll do 3/4 of a cup of Gus Gus. Get my 1.5 cups. And this is one of those things where I love whenever I make this. It's a great recipe to use a lot of discard if you need to get rid of some, because they are a discard heavy waffle, but they are so delicious. So I've got 3/4 of Jacques in there, and that way I can feed them up and we can make some more sourdough later. And then we're going to add in some of Gus Gus. Give it a poke down. And I need 3/4 of a cup of Gus Gus. There we go. So 1.5 cups of our discard. Here we go. And then I'm going to just move these guys out of safety because I always say I'm going to knock them over if I don't. And I have dropped one of them before and broken one of my starters. So you don't want to ruin them. A lot of work is put to keep them alive. So we're going to dissolve, kind of essentially like dilute our starter into our milk here. And then I'm going to add in 6 tablespoons of butter. So waffles, unlike pancakes, have a lot more butter into it. And that's what's going to give you your nice kind of crispy ridges on your waffles, which make them so delicious. So I've got 6 tablespoons of butter melted, and then we're going to mix them in. And there we go. Kind of coat it around. And then we're going to add in 3 eggs. But I'm going to actually whip my eggs up into my little cup first because otherwise I'll kind of just swim around in my bowl here because there's a lot of more batter base. And that way I'm not kind of chasing them. I'm going to grab a little fork here. And then we'll whisk them up. And then we'll mix them into our waffle base. There we go. So 3 eggs in. And so the mixture of the eggs, the sourdough discard, and then our baking powder and baking soda is what's going to give these a nice kind of puff on them. Make them a little bit lighter, but you want to let them sit for just a little bit because it allows those times for them to react, which makes the batter a bit more light and fluffy. So we're going to add in 1.5 teaspoons of baking powder and then 3/4 of a teaspoon of baking soda. So we'll do 1.5 teaspoons of baking powder. So 1.5. And then my baking soda, we'll do 3/4. So I'm going to do 1/2 and then 1/2 of a half. And a little bit more. We'll give this a good mix in. And then we're going to add in vanilla, salt, some sugar, and then our last we'll add in our flour. That way we'll just mix it until it's just combined. But you don't want to over mix it because again, you want these to be nice and fluffy. And with them being a butter base, you don't want to over mix it because that will make a denser batter. I'm just going to use the back of my spatula to kind of press any lumps of flour or of baking powder or baking soda to the side to break them up. But as you can see, it's already starting to kind of fluff up our batter. Okay, we're going to use a teaspoon and a half of vanilla, which is the same thing as a half a tablespoon. This vanilla is going to give this such a great, lovely, like sweet notes to the waffle, which I find is really, really lovely.
You have a question? Did your parents get electricity back?
They did. They got electricity back yesterday. So they kind of hung out here for a while until their house warmed up because it was like 40 degrees when they got there. But they did get the electricity back, and they're tucked in. And we finally got internet back this morning, so that was kind of nice because without internet, you don't realize how much all of your like electronic devices and everything have like a Wi-Fi signal for everything connected. So when you're stuck at home and you really can't do anything, it's like, it impacts a lot. So it's nice to have that finally back on and going for it. But yes, they are back, and their house is warm, and they're fortunate now. They lost a lot of trees, so now they're looking at a lot of cleanup in their yard to go for. We're going to add in I'm going to say about a fourth a teaspoon of salt. You don't need a whole lot, like a pinch or so, just enough to get in there. I did use salted butter, so if you're going to use unsalted butter, you want to add a little bit more, but it's going to add, it's just really going to enhance the flavors. Get our flour and our sugar over. I add a little bit of sugar to my waffles, not much, but just enough to really enhance the sweetness of it. Most of the sweetness you're going to add for your syrup or whatever you're going to top your waffles with, but I do like a little bit on here. I'm going to use just about 2 tablespoons of sugar. It's going to help make them, again, a little bit more golden and add just the slightest note of sweetness. So 2 tablespoons of sugar. Again, hardly any, but I love that slight touch of sweetness. It's the same thing. That vanilla just adds this extra hint of sweetness, which is really, really lovely. And you can see just how fluffy this batter is right now. And then we're going to add in our flour. So we have already a cup and a half of our discard in here, and we're just going to add a cup and a half more of flour. And we're going to mix it until it's just combined. Do not overmix. You want it to be kind of lumpy on there because you want your waffles to be light and fluffy, and over mixing it will make a denser batter base. We're going to add in a cup and half more. There we go. Just slide this out of the way. And then what we're going to do is we'll let this batter sit for a little bit, which will again allow it to stay nice and fluffy. I like to do that with my pancakes too because it gives time for those kind of chemical reactions between the baking powder, baking soda, vanilla, and egg and the discard to occur, which gives you a lighter, fluffier waffle and pancake. Kind of works for both. There we go. We're just going to mix it until that flour is mixed in. But again, don't mix it until your batter is smooth. You want it kind of lumpy. Just make sure you've got all of that flour kind of incorporated in. There we go. So it should be good. I have no more big chunks anywhere. We're going to let that sit. And we're going to work on our bacon and our hash browns and our other stuff, and then we'll kind of cook up our waffles because our waffles, I have my waffle maker, and it's about 3 minutes per waffle, and I can do 2 at a time, so they'll cook up pretty quickly, and I want to cook them up towards the end so they stay nice and hot. So we're going to cook up some bacon, and then we'll cook our sausage and them eggs, and then we're going to make some hash brown kind of patties that we'll saute up. So we'll grate up our own little potatoes here and do this. Let's get our bacon going.
Have you gone to a grocery store this week?
I was able to fortunately stock up fairly well last week. I had gone to the store like twice and then I still couldn't get a lot of my ingredients, but I managed to luck out with some Amazon Fresh, which is like you can order groceries from them if you live near a big city and they have a warehouse. And I was able to get all of the other groceries that I needed. So I kind of stocked up to get me through this whole week because I wasn't sure how bad the storm was going to impact us. So I'm still pretty good for now. So I have enough. I think I can make it till, at least Friday or the weekend based on what I have. We're getting down towards the end of the week. We're a little bit more limited in our options of what I can cook. But I think tonight we're going to make chicken parmesan and bake up a sourdough loaf for it. So, because I have a good amount of chicken breasts left, but on there.
Jan sent to you.
Well, thank you, Jan. We appreciate
And do
that.
you like the cookware you use?
I do. I love this. So this is the HexClad, the griddle or the nonstick, frying pan. So I have this is the 12 ounce or the 12 inch, not ounce, and this is the 10 inch. I also have the 8 inch, and then I have the griddle pan, which is for pancakes, or I use it for like grilled cheeses, quesadillas. I use it for a lot of things. My non, I love, love, love them because I haven't ruined them, and that is a big win. I've had them for a little over 2 years now, and they clean up really well and conduct heat well.
And what brand of waffle maker would you suggest?
So this is the KitchenAid Pro line. I've had this guy. Well, I should say I had this guy. My mom bought this when I was in high school, and I graduated from high school in 2006. So it's been around for a while, but I love this guy. He's a double-sided hotel waffle maker type thing, but it's the KitchenAid on there, and I really like the KitchenAid. He's been with us for a very long time. Almost, I guess it's 2026 now, so essentially 20 years, and he's still kicking. So I would have to say I recommend them. Now they don't make this exact one anymore because they've got to refresh their products eventually, but it's worked really, really well for it. I'm going to grate up my potatoes here to make our little hash brown things on here. So I've got 4 russet potatoes. We'll see how many I actually need because you'll be surprised how much hash browns one potato will make. But my kids really love these little hash brown patties. And we're going to mix in some onion powder, garlic, salt, some green onions, and some seasonings, kind of flavor them up a little bit. And then we'll fry them in some oil. But keeping it kind of simple here. I know when my kids are at school, I get to have more, soups and more crazy lunches. But when they're here, they're like, what is it? My daughter was yesterday. She was like, she picked all the beans and the meatballs out of the soup because that's what she liked. And she was just like, the one thing she was like, when I was with my friends, the one thing they asked that I didn't want was soup because I don't like soup. And both my mom and I were like, but we love soup. And she goes, I know you guys like soup, but I don't like soup. And I'm like, I don't know how you don't like soup. But I've been told that I cannot make soup on any more snow days, that I have to make other foods. And they all requested waffles today. And I was like, you know what? I can do waffles. I said, luckily, waffles are one of those things where I was able to stock up on a lot of, eggs and bacon because I figured I'm like, well, depending on whether we had snow or ice, I said these kids are going to want a lot of breakfast because they love breakfast. And, when they're at school, they don't get like the fancy breakfasts, we do on the weekends. And so I was like, and we eat a lot, when there's so many of us, we go through at least a dozen eggs for breakfast. So I was like, we can do this. I can make it. It's easy. It's simple. It's cheap, Those are the best type of meals. Here, so we'll get there. Slice these up. And then we're going to squeeze out a little bit of the liquid on there. And then we'll heat up some oil for this. Now, I will say, if you've never tried to make homemade hash brown patties, They are so, so delicious and so, so easy to make. And I will say one potato will get you like 4 or 5 little hash brown patties. So it's something that you actually get a lot out of it. And they're really, really easy to make. You just add in like whatever spices you want and you just press them together and you fry them up. And you just don't want to make them super thick because you want them to crisp up nicely. And they're just delicious. Just another way to do a potato. There we go. And you don't have to peel your potatoes because you get hardly any like skin on each one during the shredded process. So here's just 2 potatoes and you can see how quickly, how much you're going to get out of it. So we'll get a couple more on here. Now, when you grate these, you have to use them up. This is not something that you can do ahead because potatoes will turn purple if you grate them up and you leave them exposed to the oxygen too much. They oxidize, which then causes them to, there's nothing wrong with them. They're just not pretty to eat. Same thing like with bananas or apples. The natural sugar in the potato will turn it purple. And get this down. Plus, it's a good little arm workout. It was sad we didn't have, like any wireless or whatnot, so we couldn't do our little Billy Blanks workout, our Tybo yesterday, and I was a bit sad. I was like, oh no. And it was so funny because, just a while back, I like disconnected our Blu-ray player because I said, oh, we rarely use our Blu-ray player. I'm just going to set it up now. And I'm like, oh, why did I disconnect it? Now we have to go try to put everything back together just to watch a movie or a show. There we go. I'll turn that. Give that a nice little top. And let's see, I'm deciding whether I think 3 will actually be enough for us because we're going to have a lot of different components on here. But 3 potatoes make a lot.
Mary, thank you again.
Well, thank you, Mary. We appreciate that. So I've got some green onions here. I think I'm just going to stick with one. I'm going to snip them kind of nice and fine, but it will give you a nice, fresh kind of bit of green onion flavor in there. And then we're going to use onion powder as well, which adds a really great savory note to your little potatoes, which I highly recommend. Don't like skimp out on the seasonings or the onion powder. It really adds such a great flavor to the potatoes, to the little hash browns. There we go. Get this all snipped up. And then I'm going to, before we mix in some more spices, I'm going to start heating up our oil so that we can start frying them off here in just a second. The one thing though, I was going out, the one thing that I am running low on is fruit. That is something we have been eating through, and there is very little like fresh fruit. We're down to like our grapes and golden kiwis. And of course, we always have like apples and oranges. But last week, there was no berries to be had anywhere. Like all the strawberries, blueberries, raspberries were pretty much sold out. So I couldn't really restock up on any of those. And those are what my kids really, really love. And so I'm like, we're down to it. And they're like, wait, my oldest daughter, she's like, we have no fruit. And I'm like, we do. We just don't have any of the fruit you like because she's our picky one. I'll turn this down a little bit. We'll give this a nice little toss on here. So I always start my bacon up on a higher temperature to start that fat, to render down. And then I kind of turn it to a medium because I don't want it to burn, but I want a good layer of fat to form so that it can really crisp up the bacon. Now, sometimes I find that your bacon isn't as fatty as it used to be, and you might need to put a little butter in there to help it so that it crisps up. But this one looks like it's pretty decent. Okay, we're going to add in I'm going to do about a tablespoon of onion powder in here. That's going to make it really lovely and nice and savory. Just going to use the last of this. And then I have some Mrs. Dash's table blend, which is just kind of like an all-around seasoning, but it's finely ground, which makes it like the texture really nice. And we're gonna add in about a teaspoon and a half, a good amount, but you want good seasoning in all of it. Now this is a salt-free one. Bruni, Loki. Gotta bark at all the people out there. It's so funny. So we have this tree right outside our window, and I guess because the ground is all frozen, there's hundreds of birds there because it has a bunch of berries, and they've been eating all the berries. I'm gonna put in about a teaspoon or so of garlic salt. And our cats have been just watching them intently, and they've been wanting to go outside. And I'm like, no, 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 you guys are not going to go outside and terrorize the birds. We're going to let them eat and enjoy themselves.
So you have a question, what breed of dogs do you have?
We have Cavalier King Charles Spaniels. I always say it wrong. King Charles Cavalier Spaniels. There we go. So they're like, they're really fluffy right now because they have their winter coats. They get really fuzzy, and during like the summer we cut them shorter, but they're really fluffy on there. So they'll probably make an appearance here and there. They're cute. They're smaller dogs, although ours are kind of chunky, so they're not that small. I always tell my husband, I said they're chunky because it's just their fur and they're thin now. But they're chunky because they're really good at stealing the kids' food. Loki has made it like he has mastered the art of it. He's really, really fast when it comes to, getting the kids' food from their hands or their plate. Really, really fast, like a ninja. But any other thing, he's really slow. But that, he is like super fast. It's like, I don't know, there's like that Simpson episode where Homer Simpson's eating a donut and the dog is like jumping and getting it every time. That is Loki. Okay, perfect. This is about ready to go in. It's got nice and fluffy bubbliness here. Check my oil on here. It's pretty good. So we'll probably get our first one in. But what we want to do here is don't just put it in like this. You want to squeeze, and I just see all that liquid. Squeeze the liquid out of it, and you want to make a really flat, kind of like a potato pancake. But squeeze that extra liquid out. There we go. And then we'll put it in there to fry up. But the more liquid.
Joe has a question for you.
What's for dinner tonight? I actually know what's for dinner tonight because, again, we're getting down to the end of our groceries. And we are going to be having chicken parmesan tonight. So it's Torrin will be very, very happy because he loves anytime I make like a fried chicken cutlet of some sort. And he was a little under the weather when we did our schnitzel. And so he didn't feel well enough to eat that day. And he kind of missed out. He just slept. He went to bed at like 6 that day, and I felt bad for him. And then the schnitzel was all gone. So I was like, I'll make you something for that. So he'll be very, very happy with that tonight. We're going to get this. We've got our potato pancake here. Again, fluff it out nice. And then we'll put it on there. Don't leave it too thick. You want it to be thin so that it crisps up. If you leave it in a thick mound where it's too thick, you're not going to get that really good crispness or crispy part on it. And squeeze it out. Get that extra liquid out. There we go. And then I'm going to turn it down to about a 5. Give our hands a quick rinse. We're going to start cooking off our waffles here in just a second. So I had my oil heating up until it was nice and hot, and then we'll pop it in here and we'll cook it over medium, around 350 degrees so that it gets a nice and crispy base to it.
And you go over what's with the potatoes?
So the potatoes have onion powder, garlic salt, some green onions, and Mrs. Dash's table blend in it. I think I'm going to add a little bit of butter to this because if you look, I don't have a good amount of fat rendering down on the bottom of my pan. And if I don't add any extra fat to this, it will just be a chewy bacon instead of a crispy bacon. So we're going to add a little bit. I know it seems kind of weird, but it will fix the texture of your bacon. So I'm going to add about a tablespoon, and that should give me enough base for it to really crisp up. And then help it starts that rendering down. There we go. Because you need to have just this nice layer of fat on the bottom of it. And sometimes you get a cut of bacon that is more meaty than fat, and it doesn't have enough to really give you that nice crisp up. And you don't have to really worry about it because it's not like you're actually going to be eating that extra butter, because you're going to be removing it out and it's going to be nice and crispy, and you'll have a puddle of butter left in their pan. Okay, I'm going to get a scoop and we're going to get our first batch of waffles kind of cooking here. Let's fill this out and kind of cook these up. These are going to take about 3 minutes for each one, so I'm thinking we'll be good with our timing on here. It's nice and preheated. You don't need to spray anything down because these have a good amount of butter in our batter already. So I'm going to fill it up. Do not overfill your waffle makers because if you do, they'll burst out the sides, and then you have a big mess to clean up. So,
Marianne,
well, thank you, Marianne. We appreciate that. I'm going to just fill it around right here, and when I flip it over, it will expand it on here on the other side. Also, overfilling it will give you a denser waffle, and you want a nice and fluffy waffle. Again, this is a double-sided waffle maker, so I can make 2 at the same time. I'm going to put my timer on, which sets it for 3 minutes, which is about the amount of time it takes for these waffles to cook. Now, if your timer, like a waffle maker, doesn't have a timer, a good way to know when your waffles are done is when you stop seeing steam rise up out of them. That's when they've cooked through the liquid they've, finished cooking off. And there should be a good amount right here. We're going to flip that back over. And we've got that ready. It looks like these guys, that one might be ready to flip. I'm going to grab my spatula and we'll check it out. I'm going to do a spatula and tongs so that I have something to grip and flip. And you can kind of tell when you have nice kind of golden edges like this. Beautiful. This one, I'm going to rotate a little bit because I want this side to get a little bit more golden. And same here. We'll just give it a little turn. And let those insides crisp up a little bit before we flip them. But once you start to notice that golden brown around the edges, that's when you're going to know you're ready to flip them. Here we go. You can see our bacon now. We have a good little bit of grease on the bottom of the pan, which will allow it to really crisp up instead of burn. And so we can get a crispy bacon instead of a chewy bacon. There we go. Also, don't cook your bacon in too big of a pan. If your pan is too big, then you won't have enough fat in that small area. So I've got a pound cooking in my 10-inch versus my 12-inch. And that's simply so that I have a smaller surface area to have that grease pool up on. And this is because I always call this my crazy fried bacon, but I really love pan fried bacon. I know lots of people swear by the oven, but I am like a pan fried bacon girl. Like this is how I've always had it, and I just love it.
Like the viral trend in a pot is essentially this.
I know, yeah. It's essentially the way I feel like we all grew up eating it, and then I don't know when it was like the mid 2000s where it switched over to oven baked bacon, and now it's like, oh look, you can do it in a pot, and I'm like, that's how they were doing it for decades. There we go. Look at that gorgeous, beautiful, crispy fried hash brown there. So delicious. And just slide that in there. And wonderful. We're going to have our waffles will be ready to come out here in just a second. So let me grab a plate for them. I kind of took this waffle maker from my parents' house. I always said, I'll bring it back whenever you make waffles. And they've not made waffles in like 20 years with it. But I always say, I always need to remember they have these waffle stands where you put your waffles in it. And I'm like, oh, I need to remember to go take those next time I'm there. I find that a lot of kitchen gear that I want, I just go shopping at their house and I'll get my kitchen gear because I make all my parents' meals. So you're just going to go through, lift it up, give it a nice little tug up on each side on there. You don't want to pull too much until it's released. Otherwise, you'll tear your waffle in half. There we go. Beautiful. You hear that nice crispy edge on both sides. Beautiful.
Your question, do you make your parents breakfast as well?
I'll do their grocery shopping for them. They eat like a very sad breakfast. They're like the yogurt and healthy people. If they'll come over for a lot of these breakfasts on the weekends, they'll come over and join us for them. But I just kind of make their like lunch and dinners. They do their yogurt and wheat germ and berries and stuff like that. I don't like yogurt, so to me, I call it a very sad breakfast because yogurt is not my cup of tea. Here we go. We'll get this on here. Pop it up, slide it under. There we go. Beautiful. See, I overfilled just a smidge, but not too bad. Let me put start on here. And we'll get our next round in. Oops, I totally missed mine. So we'll have to wipe that clean real quick. And
are these Belgian waffles?
So yes, they're essentially like a Belgian waffle, but they're actually a sourdough waffle on here. But Belgian waffle is the style, the big thing. But the beauty of these waffles, where most typical Belgian waffles are, is you have to like beat the eggs, separate them and whip the egg whites and fold them in. I don't like doing that. This is a little bit easier.
Yeah, some people thinking that time is edited out. Can you explain again?
Oh, yes. So time is not edited out. This is a double-sided waffle maker. So it cooks for 3 minutes, and I put mixture on each side. So I can do 2 at one time. So I am not magically pulling a waffle out in 30 seconds. It really is. There is no magic. I can make a lot of magic happen. I can't do that. But it's double-sided. So I can do 2 waffles at one time, which is great for when you have a big family like this and you've got, hungry kiddos who are always beckoning for food and claim that they never have any food. Our bacon is just about done here.
That's a good question. With the potatoes, can you squeeze the water off first and then season them?
You definitely can and squeeze it, but you're going to have to squeeze it out again because they're going to just keep dripping more and more water out. So I kind of do it. I over season mine so that they have just great flavor in it. But look how crispy and delicious these guys are for it. You're going to have to do it just multiple times during the process because they have so much on there. So you can definitely do it. And I kind of pull it out on there. The seasoning help kind of prevent it from going purple. So I kind of put them in there where when you squeeze the liquid out, that's going to make them go purple faster. So I just kind of do it right at the very end to prevent them from oxidizing too fast. But yes, you could squeeze out and do it. Sometimes I'll make them and set them out and then have them going, but knowing I'm going to have to double squeeze them because it's like it never stops the pooling of the liquid. You'd be surprised how much there's in there.
And there's no flour in these?
No flour. I always make mine kind of, gluten-free in the sense you can add a little bit of flour or cornstarch, which gives you a little bit of a battered texture to it. But this is just onion powder, garlic salt, and Mrs. Dash's table blend and some green onions. The onion powder works as a really good binder, but it gives great flavor to it, which is what I like over using the
And what
flour.
are these?
These are like potato hash browns or potato pancakes. They're just freshly grated potatoes with our little spices in it. Get this guy in there. And I'm going to turn this guy down nice and low, and we're going to grab our waffles out. Once I get my hands rinsed for it. Let's give our bacon a quick little stir here. Perfect. These are just about ready. So I'm going to grab a plate, and we'll grab our waffles out here in just a second. Luckily with the waffle maker, you're not in a super rush to get them out right away. You can adjust the timing. I find right around 3 minutes is perfect, but it can go a little bit longer or a little bit less depending on how crisp you like your waffles. Now, my oldest daughter loves her waffles extra crisp, So typically when I make them, I pop them back in after them and crisp hers up even more so that hers is extra crispy. But it's also a really great way if you want to like reheat your waffles. You can always pop them in the oven or pop them in the toaster to crisp them back up. So you can always make a big batch. But just to hear that nice kind of crispness to them. Let's get our next one in. And now this batter, we don't have to spray. These are like a griddle pan, so they're non-stick. But our batter has 6 tablespoons of butter in it, which melts down and gives you that crisp edge on your waffle. There we go. Beautiful. And again, don't overfill because this batter does puff up a lot because it has 3 eggs, baking powder, and baking soda, and the sourdough discard in it. So those are all work together to give you the nice fluffy waffle. Beautiful. And again, I go around and I kind of lift up on all edges. Otherwise, you can tear your waffle in half. Beautiful. Nice, delicious, wonderful waffle. And I will say these waffles do, a lot of times I'll make big batches and then keep them in the freezer because then I can just pop them out and put them in my air fryer and just toast them up during the weekdays for the little ones, you know, when they're home so they can get I do that with my pancakes too. So they have just easy breakfasts throughout the week. Now, I will say with sourdough waffles and pancakes, the sourdough flavor is enhanced the longer it goes. Loki. Apparently, lots of people are out walking today. The roads are finally starting to melt a little bit, which is nice. Let's get that. Start. Now, these are big waffles, so you don't think that you need a full waffle per person unless you're eating just waffles. My kids, some of them will eat a full waffle because they love it, but most of the time it's like a half a waffle. The little ones might eat a fourth of one. We're going to put our sausage in here, cook it in our bacon grease. Loki. Loki boy, come here. Oh, he sees dogs. That's why he's... There we go. Pop out. Now these are pre-cooked sausages, but my kids love their sausages cooked in bacon grease. It gives them a nice kind of crispy shell up on them and just makes them so much better and delicious. I cook them kind of lower temperature, right around a 4. They don't need a long time to crisp up, and then we can get our eggs kind of cooking there in just a second.
Marianne says her dog is barking because of Loki.
You know what? It's so funny. Anytime like we watch like a nature show and there's like a dog or an animal and it's making a sound, my dogs go crazy on it. And it's so, so funny. Here we go.
You have a question? How do you keep the waffle from sticking together?
They actually, because they're so crispy and they're perfect, they just naturally don't stick together on there. It's just because I guess maybe it's the batter and it's got the butter in it, but they're not sticky. They're not like, you know, they don't stick together on there.
So. And do you post your waffle recipe anywhere?
So I will post our live on here so you can always watch and recreate from our video as well. I do have this recipe card out for our members out there, so they can always find it from there. But as always, our live videos are available for everyone to watch and recreate from. And I should be having hopefully a cookbook out, and I'm going to have like a little breakfast section in our cookbook, you know, to have my pancakes in there, have my Swedish pancakes, and our waffles. And then when we made our chocolate waffles using our chocolate sourdough starter, those were so good.
Do you make anything you don't like?
Very few things, but that's the beauty of cooking there. But only when it's like somebody's special request on there. And it's not that I don't like them, they're just not my favorite things. Like lemon tarts, not my favorite things, but that is my husband's favorite dessert, and I make it for him on Father's Day and his birthday. And it's not that I don't love them. I'm not a big sour person. They're just a lot of work because you make their little individual tarts, and they're a lot of work. But why he gets them twice a year, but asks for them several times a year. But no, most of the time, because I am the chef, and that's the bonus about being the chef and the cook, I get to make what I like. Now, that doesn't bode so well for the dish cleaner. He often has to eat salmon, which he hates at least once a week almost. But, I always say you could learn to cook, but he's happy with doing the dishes. There's our last beautiful one on there. Flip this guy over, and here's the second one. So no magic. Slide it up. Release it. Ah, there we go. And that is a stack of waffles. Perfect. And I always keep this there because you can always re-crisp them up by just tossing the waffle back in and crisp it up for my daughter who likes it extra, extra crispy. Like those some people who love their toast very, very, almost burnt. Well, she likes her waffle extra crispy. And the nice thing is when you keep them in a stack like this, they stay nice and warm and nice and hot for this. But we're going to get these sausages out. We'll whip up our eggs, and then our breakfast will be nice and ready here. Get this guy. Put him on here. I'm going to let this one cook a little bit longer. You just kind of wait until they're nice and golden on there for it. And there's our things. I'm going to go get my eggs ready I've got them right here. And then we'll do a simple scrambled egg because my kids kind of love a nice scrambled egg on here. We're going to put them in our sausage with a little bit of our bacon. I'm going to pull out some of our bacon grease and whatnot in there because you don't want to use too much of it. Otherwise, it will be too greasy.
Where can they find a waffle maker like yours?
So KitchenAid does have one similar to it. It's not the exact same one. What is it? There's a Bell. Oh my gosh, I'm blanking on the name of it. Bevel. There we go. I was like, Bevel. Breville. There we go. I don't know why I couldn't remember that name. Breville has one as well. Cuisinart has one that is similar to it. That they all make variations of it. I believe I have a variation that's similar to this in my Amazon storefront. This classic, he is definitely an heirloom of the past, but has made it several years, which is why I love it. When I find a good product that lasts the test of time, that's when I love to recommend it. A lot of my products that I have been around forever, like my knives. I have, the Wusthof knives. I've had them for 16 years, going on 17, and they're still going strong. Same thing with my All-Clad pans. These are my Hex-Clad, which are relatively new brand. I've had these for 2 years, but my All-Clad or wedding present, they're going on 17 years now, and they're doing great. I'm going to take out some of this bacon grease because I don't need it all in there, and you don't want to put too much in there. Otherwise, you're going to have really greasy eggs, but they will add a great bit of flavor to our things. I'm going to take out some of these little bits, but I'm going to add a little bit in. Just use your paper towel here to soak it up. Grab a little and put it in this bowl. And this way, it's a great way to get rid of your bacon grease. I'm going to turn this down nice and low, and then I add a little bit of butter because I like the mixture of butter and bacon grease for my eggs, but not too heavy on one or the other. Let's get this guy flipped. These are ready to come off. Perfect. And we'll get our eggs going. And scrambled eggs will cook up pretty quickly, and so we should be ready to serve up here in just a few minutes.
Can you give a rundown on everything so far?
So yes, we've made our sourdough waffles that we just popped out of the waffle iron right now. They're made with 1.5 cups of sourdough discard, so we made a big batch of them. They have a slight sweetness to them from vanilla and a little teeny bit of sugar. And then we made some potato hash browns we shredded up some russet potatoes, added in onion powder, garlic salt, and Mrs. Dash's table blend. And then we cooked up some bacon and sausage, and now we're going to scramble up some eggs, which I do the pan scramble versus the scramble like outside and mix it in because it works just as well. On here, I just poke each yolk, and then we'll get this going here. You'll have nice little bacon and little sausage drippings in your egg, which will season it up nicely. Adds a little bit, but if you were to leave all of that bacon grease in there, you'd have a really greasy, slimy egg. So don't always make sure you take out some. Just leave like a tablespoon max in there. You know, I kind of left about a teaspoon and a half, and then I added in about a teaspoon of butter to have that mixture of it. I love the bacon flavor in there, but I love also that butter and that flavor with my eggs. And this is the one thing I love about. So these are the Hexclad, and they do really well cook up the eggs, and you can scramble them really nicely on here. And that's one thing I love. The pans clean up really nice with them, and they just work really great. And so there's lots of different methods to scrambling your eggs. I prefer more of a drier scrambled egg, so not the French version. The French version is you cook them over really, really low heat and you slowly scramble them for a more snotty, liquidy, runny egg. I prefer a slightly drier, firmer egg, which means I'm going to cook them at a slightly higher temperature, and I'm going to cook them until there's no more moisture in them. Now, the trick is so that your eggs don't get too dry is you're going to cook them to about right where you want it, right before you're going to serve them, and then you turn them off the heat. So I'm going to stop them right now. And by the time I'm ready to serve them, the remainder of that liquid is going to cook off. If you cook them perfectly, then they'll be too dry when you're ready to serve them.
Do you have any sourdough bread for toast?
We are having our sourdough waffles today. So not bread, but we have our delicious sourdough waffles that we're going to be having with our eggs, bacon, and things. But tonight we are going to be baking up another loaf of our sourdough bread. We're going to do our Italian herbs and cheese one, or it's actually black pepper and Gouda with our dinner tonight. So let's get ready to serve up. I'm going to move my eggs over here. And you can see that last remainder of liquid is steaming off. So don't cook them until they're completely dry, or by the time you get ready to serve them, they'll be too dry. So just a smidge under, and then turn your pan off, and the residual heat will do the remainder of your work. As long as you like them this way. If you like them snotty, then you'll still be cooking them on low right now. Okay, let's get ready to serve up. I'm not going to give a full waffle because they're a bit much, but look at our beautiful sourdough waffles here. We've still got our nice, lovely, crispy ridges. We're going to top that with our syrup because you've got to have syrup in every little square. That's the way my kids always suggest this one. And then we're going to serve it with our scrambled eggs. There we go. Our homemade potato hash browns. Then we have sausage and our crazy fried bacon for a really simple and delicious snow day waffle lunch. Just the perfect. And the sourdough waffles are really just, you get a little hint of the sourdough, but you have the sweetness from the vanilla, and they're just wonderful. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us here. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I try to do live cooking shows every single day, kind of show you what we're making for our family and hopefully teach you guys something along the way. Again, we do upload all of our videos to the link on our page, so if you ever want to recreate any of these recipes, you can just go to our page and search for our Snow Day waffles, and you can always recreate our waffles and our hash browns along with us again. We also have a link to our Amazon storefront that has all of our different cooking gear and gadgets in it. I've got my knives, cutting boards. I think I have another similar waffle maker to ours that is almost like us because this is a relic from the past. But I have that all in there for you guys to check out. But again, thank you so much for joining us here. Don't forget to like and subscribe.